do come quite frequently these days, and I appreciate that everyone has come to this one, especially Rachel Khan, who is called upon so many times by many people, and I'm just so grateful having heard her before and being overwhelmed by her speech. You hear speeches and forget them. In this case, there was no such thing. I've remembered and was more than thrilled when she chose to launch this book. And when I say this book, I don't even want to call it my book, because it's your book. The people sitting in this room, or their families, it's their stories that I've collected. I'm the conduit who brings the stories to a place where they can be published and they can be kept for perpetuity. And it's been the work of 22 years, and I have been saying that I'm stopping now. I think you have to know when to stop, but I get a hollow laugh when I say that to people, so perhaps they know something I don't. But anyhow, I'm here today. It's a very odd feeling after 22 years to say, all right, this is it. And where do I find myself? Satisfied and glad that I had both the brain stayed with me and the health and the years that gave me a chance to do what I had set out to do. I did have, more or less, after 5 years of working on this program, I decided one day I would go back and I would tell the stories of those who saved Jews. I'll go back to that in a minute. I just want to say, though, that I found myself surprisingly in the recent months consumed with anger and hurt. Ancient anger and hurt, I suppose, because what breaks my heart all the time, or perhaps no, sorry, while I was working on the stories, I didn't have the time or the privilege of just sitting and breaking my heart over every story. I was looking at continuity, I was looking at storyline, I was looking at commas, I was holding my emotions back, and occasionally when I walked into a Jewish kindergarten, it would hit me very hard that all those children would not be here if Hitler had had his way. But then I find myself now consumed with so much anger, although we're talking about those who saved Jews. I just keep thinking that Hitler may not have happened. He may have come and gone if there hadn't been a great deal of collusion, disinterest. The world's leaders did not stand up to Hitler. The Pope did not stand up to Hitler. The religious leaders did not stand up to Hitler. And then when they realised that he was a monster, and let's not say Jews, and let's not say Germans, and let's not say Nazis, that human beings could behave in such a deliberate, cruel, hateful, determined way to slaughter, to murder men, women and children, they shut their doors. And people were trying to escape, and very few did. I am claiming the title of survivor, and that's a bit presumptuous, I know, because I came to Australia in April 1938, aged not barely 3. But then the people who stayed behind in the shtetl I was born in all died. 400 members of my extended family died. I have dedicated this book to George Oshlack, who's in this room today, and his stories in amongst the others. 2 young boys of 14 and 19, young men, jumped from the train to Treblinka and survived, and because of the preciousness of those 2 boys to my father when they came off the train to Australia, it brought home to me the fact that all of us here sitting in this room, if you are Jewish, you are a survivor. You would not be here if Hitler had had his way. So these ancient herds and hate, fear, hurts and angers that I carry are pretty useless, but when you're reading story after story and seeing what it was like on the ground, and here if I had half an hour or an hour I could speak to you and tell you of some of the stories, but of course 50 of them are now in the book and you can read them for yourself. I would really like, I've chosen 3 people to read today. I could have chosen any of those stories and they would have mattered and they would have perhaps explained more about what I might say to you today but won't. I'll leave the stories to speak for themselves. And I really want to thank the authors who generously gave me their stories and their time, and it hurt and it brought back bad memories, and they nevertheless either sat and wrote or spoke to me. I recorded them and I collected the stories, and with their cooperation they became published. So that's the bad news. My anger, my hurt, ancient. We all know what happened, and now let's talk about what this is really about. Courage to care. Very few people saved Jews, and how would they? Why should they? They would hide, there were people who would hide a child, or a woman and a child. To hide a Jewish man was very, very dangerous indeed, and yet some did. They did it generally out of common humanity, because they did look beyond names, categories. They saw a human being in trouble and they just acted sometimes quite on the spur of the moment, and sometimes they acted with some thought and concern. They weren't all angels and not everybody was treated as well as they might have been, but every single person who saved a Jew was putting themselves in dire danger. I suppose one should really look at that, at who saved and helped Jews. Every time a Jew was saved, a woman was saved, a child was saved, I am surprised reading between the lines that some people hid Jews and then the neighbours didn't know. The little shop in the corner knew. There were people who later on said, we knew you were harbouring a Jewish woman. If I went through some of the stories, it seems to me, and spoke to you about them, but you will read and find for yourself that it wasn't always only the people who were hiding the Jewish person in the cellar, in the attic. The neighbours did know, somebody did know, and they turned a blind eye. So when we despair, when we sometimes think that it's part of our human nature to be psychotic, to be murderous, to be hateful, we've got to know that where the world leaders didn't stand up to scrutiny, a lot of simple, ordinary people, when I say simple, I don't mean simple, ordinary people did, and they're always there amongst us, and we have to honour them. And I knew this many years ago, maybe after 5 years, that I would go back and try and write about those people, or to find your stories that write about those people. So there's a great deal of satisfaction that I've actually lived long enough and have been able to fulfil those 50 stories. So I think I just want to also honour Anne Van Ders, who may stand up for a minute. She's the daughter of a group of people. She's come from Queensland. She's the daughter of a group of Dutch people who got together. They were a bunch of brothers and friends who hid Jews. A family in their own home and a bunch of other Jewish people scattered around. And one of her uncles died in a concentration camp as a result of what he did. So, Anne, I'm making you a representative of the people who saved Jews today, and I'm so glad you're here. And that's all I want to say. Please, the rest you'll find in the book. I hope people buy books and find they're look a bit weighty, put them in their bookshelves, and maybe might get to read them one day. Please read these stories, they are remarkable. They are truly, it's so easy to throw words like that up, remarkable, but they're totally remarkable. And again, I thank all of you for sharing your stories, and I know that a great many of you have gone back to find the children and grandchildren of those who saved them, and that's also told in the stories. Thank you very much.